Maple Grove Pediatric Clinic. 3:47 p.m. The receptionist looked at me like I'd grown a second head. She blinked twice, checked her screen, then blinked again. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitfield, but Nora's appointment was at 2 o'clock. Your husband already checked her in. They should be finishing up with Dr. Patani right now." 2 o'clock. The appointment, I was told, was at 4. The appointment my husband had reminded me about this morning over coffee, his voice casual, almost bored. 4 o'clock, babe, same as always. I'll grab her from kindergarten and head straight over. You don't need to rush home from work. But I had rushed. My last meeting canceled. I'd driven 40 minutes through Atlanta traffic to surprise them both. Maybe take Nora for frozen yogurt afterward. Instead, I was standing in a waiting room that smelled like orange-scented hand sanitizer and lies, holding my purse like a weapon I didn't know how to use. "Can I wait for them here?" I asked. Of course, they shouldn't be long. I sat down in a plastic chair next to a fish tank. My 5-year-old daughter had been coming to this office every Thursday for the past year and a half. Allergy treatments, my husband said. She had developed a sensitivity to tree pollen and certain proteins. Dr. Patani was the best pediatric allergist in the metro area. My husband had researched him thoroughly, of course. He researched everything thoroughly. I'd never questioned it. Nora did sneeze a lot in spring. Her eyes got puffy sometimes. And my husband, with his background in pharmaceutical sales, understood medicine in a way I never would. He spoke in acronyms and dosing schedules. He kept a binder. He tracked her reactions in an app on his phone. He was, by every measure, an exceptional father. So why had he told me the appointment was at 4 when it was actually at 2? The door to the exam rooms swung open. Nora burst through first, a lollipop already in her mouth, her dark curls bouncing. She spotted me and her face lit up like sunrise. "Mommy, what are you doing here?" I scooped her up, breathing in her little kid smell of strawberry shampoo and playground dust. "Surprise, baby." My husband appeared behind her. For exactly 1 second, something crossed his face, something quick and cold that I'd never seen before. Then it was gone, replaced by that warm, easy grin. "Hey, this is a nice surprise. I thought you had meetings until 5. Cancelled." I shifted Nora to my hip. "How'd it go? How was Dr. Patani?" "Great. Same old routine. The immunotherapy is really working. Her IgE levels are way down." He rattled off numbers, confident, practiced. On the drive home, I watched him in my rearview mirror. He sang along to the radio with Nora, their little duet of some pop song she loved. Everything normal, everything perfect, except that I couldn't shake the feeling that I had walked onto a stage mid-scene and everyone knew their lines but me. That night, after Nora was asleep, I opened my laptop and pulled up our insurance portal. I'd never checked it before, never needed to. My husband handled all the medical stuff, the same way he handled the taxes and the investments and the lawn care. He was a man who thrived on control, and I had always mistaken that control for love. I searched for Nora's claims. The allergy visits were there, billed every Thursday. But the procedure codes didn't match anything I recognized. I copied one and pasted it into a search engine. The first result was a medical coding database. I clicked it. The code translated to Hepatocyte Infusion Therapy, Pediatric, Experimental Protocol. I read it 3 times. Then I read it a 4th time, because the words refused to make sense. Hepatocyte. Liver cells. My daughter was being treated for pollen allergies with liver cell therapy. My hands started shaking. Not a tremble, a full body vibration that started in my fingers and worked its way down to my knees. I closed the laptop slowly, as if the screen itself might bite me. I knew nothing about hepatocyte infusions. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever was happening to my daughter every Thursday at 2 o'clock had nothing to do with tree pollen. The next morning I called in sick. My husband left at 8 with a kiss on my forehead and a reminder to pick up Nora's probiotic from the pharmacy. The specific brand. The one he ordered from a specialty supplier. Not the generic. Never the generic. I watched his car disappear down our tree-lined street in Decatur. Then I went straight to his study. The door was never locked. He didn't need to lock it, because I had never in 6 years of marriage felt the need to go in there without him. Trusting wife, perfect arrangement. His desk was immaculate. A single monitor, a wireless keyboard, a small framed photo of the three of us at the Savannah waterfront. I opened the filing cabinet. It was organized with military precision. Mortgage, insurance, vehicles, tax returns, and a folder at the very back, unlabeled. Inside was a printout from something called the Kessler-Brandt Institute. I'd never heard of it. The letterhead was elegant, clinical, Advanced Hepatic Regeneration Program. Patient ID, NW0517. Protocol phase. Conditioning, NW0517. Nora Whitfield, born May 17th. The document was dense with jargon, but certain phrases jumped out as if they were highlighted in neon. Recipient compatibility enhancement. Donor organ conditioning through targeted cellular pretreatment. Living donor hepatectomy. Partial projected timeline. Q4 2026. Donor organ conditioning. My daughter wasn't receiving treatment. She was being prepared. Her liver was being conditioned, primed, optimized for removal and transplant into someone else. I made it to the kitchen sink just in time to throw up. After the nausea passed, I sat on the cold tile floor and forced myself to think. Who was the recipient? The document didn't say, but there was a reference number linked to a patient at Emory University Hospital's transplant center. I photographed every page with my phone, then put the folder back exactly as I'd found it. I spent the next 4 hours at the public library, using their computers because I didn't trust my home network. I searched for the Kessler-Brandt Institute. Their website was sleek and vague, pioneering solutions in organ compatibility and regenerative medicine. No patient reviews, no news articles, just a prestigious-sounding board of directors and an address in Buckhead. Then I searched for the procedure code again, deeper this time. I found a medical ethics journal article from 2 years ago. Hepatocyte preconditioning in pediatric living donors. Promise and peril. The abstract made my blood freeze. The procedure involved injecting specially cultured liver cells into a potential donor over a period of months to enhance the compatibility and regenerative capacity of their liver tissue before a partial hepatectomy. It was experimental. It was not FDA approved for pediatric use. And the long-term effects on the donor child were, in the article's careful academic language, insufficiently studied and potentially significant. They were remodeling my daughter's liver from the inside out, turning her into a better spare part. I drove to my mother's house. She lived 40 minutes south in McDonough, a retired school principal with a bullshit detector sharper than a surgeon's scalpel. I sat at her kitchen table and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her coffee going cold. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Who's getting the liver?" "I don't know." "You do know. You just haven't let yourself think it yet." She was right. The answer had been circling my mind like a vulture. My father-in-law. Richard Whitfield, 71 years old. Former CEO of Whitfield Chemical, a man whose wealth was matched only by his ferocity. He'd been sick for the past 2 years. Something vague. My husband always deflected. "Dad's fine, just slowing down. Old age." But I'd noticed things. The yellowing around Richard's eyes at Christmas. The way he avoided alcohol at family dinners when he used to drink scotch like water. The quiet, tense phone calls my husband took in the garage, always in the garage, pacing. "His father needs a liver transplant," I said, the words tasting like metal. "And he's using our daughter to provide it." My mother's face went hard. "Then we need a lawyer today, not tomorrow. Today." Her name was Diane Okafor. She worked out of a small office in Midtown, specializing in medical malpractice and family law, an unusual combination that suddenly seemed like exactly what I needed. My mother's neighbor had used her in a custody dispute involving a child with special medical needs. She'd won. Diane was tall, precise, and radiated the kind of calm authority that made you feel like the building could collapse and she'd simply step over the rubble. I showed her the photographs of the documents. She studied them for 20 minutes without speaking. This doctor, Dr. Patani. He's administering an experimental, non-FDA-approved cellular therapy to a 5-year-old under the guise of allergy treatment, without the mother's informed consent, for the purpose of conditioning the child as a living organ donor. She looked up at me. This isn't just unethical, this is criminal. Can I prove it? He'll say I'm paranoid. He'll say it's a misunderstanding. Then we need to eliminate the misunderstanding. We need Nora's complete medical records from Patani's office, independently obtained. We need a second physician to review what's been administered to her. And we need to find out who's funding the Kessler-Brandt Institute. She paused. I suspect I already know, but we need it documented. She pulled up a corporate registry on her computer. The Kessler-Brandt Institute was a private LLC. Its registered agent was a law firm in Buckhead that, 3 clicks later, turned out to be the same firm that handled the Whitfield family's corporate holdings. My father-in-law wasn't just the recipient. He was the architect. That Thursday, I followed my husband. I dropped Nora at kindergarten as usual, kissed her goodbye, watched her skip through the doors with her unicorn backpack. Then I parked 2 blocks from the school and waited. At 1:15, his silver BMW pulled up. Nora climbed in. I followed them at a distance, my hands slick on the steering wheel. They didn't go to Maple Grove Pediatric. They went to a medical office building on Peachtree Dunwoody Road that I'd never seen before. No sign on the door, just a suite number. They went inside. I sat in the parking lot for 47 minutes, watching the entrance, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. When they came out, Nora had a small bandage on the inside of her left arm and a new stuffed animal. My husband was on his phone, gesturing with his free hand the way he did when he talked to his father. He loaded Nora into the car seat, checked his mirrors, and drove away. He never looked in my direction. That night, I did something I hadn't done in our entire marriage. I checked his phone. He always left it charging on the nightstand. He was in the shower. The passcode was Nora's birthday. I had 90 seconds before the water turned off. His email was meticulously organized. I searched for Kessler. Dozens of results. I opened the most recent. From Dr. Victor Kessler. Subject: NW0517, phase update. Conditioning progressing as expected. Hepatocyte engraftment rates in the target quadrant are excellent. At current trajectory, donor readiness will be achieved by late October. I recommend scheduling the pre-surgical evaluation for September. As discussed, the recipient's window is narrowing. His MELD score has increased to 28. We cannot delay beyond November without significant risk of the recipient becoming inoperable. Recipient: my 5-year-old's grandfather. A man who had bounced her on his knee last Thanksgiving and called her my little investment. I had thought it was an odd choice of words. Now it made my skin crawl. I scrolled fast. Another email from my husband to his mother. Mom, Dad's numbers are getting worse. Kessler says Nora's conditioning is on track, but we need to move up the timeline. I know you're worried about Chloe asking questions. I've got it handled. She trusts me completely. By the time she finds out, it'll be done. And she'll understand. She loves Dad. She'll see it was the right thing. She'll see it was the right thing, the casual certainty of it. The assumption that I was a variable to be managed, not a person to be consulted. He had reduced me to a PR problem in his father's medical logistics. The shower turned off. I locked his phone, placed it back on the charger, and lay in bed with my eyes closed, my body rigid, listening to him towel off and hum a song he'd been humming for weeks. I recognized it now. It was the song Nora sang at her kindergarten recital, her favorite. He was humming our daughter's favorite song while planning to slice her open. I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to the man I had married, the man I had loved, the man who had cried when Nora took her first steps, who had built her a treehouse with his own hands, who had read her the same bedtime story 47 nights in a row because she asked for it, And I understood for the first time that love and predation could wear the same face. The next morning, I called Diane. I told her everything. She was quiet for 10 seconds, which for Diane was an eternity. "We move now," she said. "I'm filing an emergency petition for sole custody and a temporary restraining order. I'm also contacting the Georgia Medical Board and the FBI's Healthcare Fraud Division. What Kessler is doing is a federal crime. What your husband is doing is conspiracy. He'll fight back. He has his father's money. His mother will fund an army of lawyers. Let them. We have something better. We have the truth, and we have a 5-year-old girl whose body has been turned into a pharmaceutical experiment without her mother's consent. No judge in Georgia will look at that and side with him. And if he runs? If he takes Nora? That's why we move now. Today. Before he knows anything has changed. Can you pick Nora up from school early without raising suspicion? Yes. Do it. Take her to your mother's house. Pack a bag for 3 days. Don't use your credit cards. I'll have an investigator at the school parking lot as a precaution. And Chloe? Yes? Don't confront him. Not yet. I know you want to. Every cell in your body wants to scream at him. But the moment he knows you know, his family's lawyers will start shredding documents and moving money. We need 24 hours of silence. Those were the longest 24 hours of my life. I picked Nora up at noon, told the school she had a dentist appointment. She chattered happily in the back seat about a caterpillar she'd found on the playground. I drove to my mother's house with my eyes burning and my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. My mother had already made up the guest room. She took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. She just took Nora to the kitchen to make cookies while I sat on the back porch and called the one person I never thought I'd call, my mother-in-law. Patricia Whitfield answered on the third ring, her voice dripping with the polished warmth of a woman who had spent her life making ugly things sound beautiful. "Chloe, darling, what a lovely surprise." "Patricia, I know about the Kessler-Brandt Institute. I know about the hepatocyte conditioning. I know about the plan to use Nora as a living donor for Richard." Silence. Not the silence of confusion. The silence of calculation. "I don't know what you're talking about, dear. I have the emails. I have the documents. I have the billing codes. Your son has been injecting our daughter with experimental liver cell therapy for 18 months to prepare her for a partial hepatectomy for your husband. Without my knowledge, without my consent. Using a fake allergy diagnosis as cover." Another silence. Longer this time. When Patricia spoke again, the warmth was gone. What remained was the voice of a woman who had run a chemical empire alongside her husband for 40 years. "Richard is dying. He has perhaps 6 months. The transplant list is 3 years long. We explored every option, every legal, every conventional option. Nothing worked. And then Victor found a way to save him using family, using blood. She's 5 years old, Patricia. It's a partial hepatectomy. The liver regenerates. She'll be fine. She won't even remember it. She's 5. And Richard is her grandfather, the man who set up her college fund, the man who will leave her everything. Don't you understand what's at stake? This isn't just about Richard's life. It's about the family's future, Nora's future. If Richard dies without the transition plan in place, the company goes to the board, the assets get frozen in probate, and your comfortable little life in Decatur disappears. You're threatening me. I'm educating you. You've always been naive, Chloe. It's what makes you charming, and it's what makes you dangerous. You don't understand how things work at this level. Sacrifices are made. That's how empires survive. Nora is not a sacrifice. Nora is a Whitfield, and Whitfields do what's necessary. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. My hands were steady now. The fear was still there, but it had crystallized into something harder, something I could use. I texted Diane. The grandmother knows. She's complicit. She just admitted it on a recorded line. Diane had told me to record every call from this point forward. Georgia was a one-party consent state. Patricia Whitfield had just handed us a confession. My husband called at 5:30. "Where are you?" "The house is empty." "At my mom's." Nora was fussy after school. I thought a change of scenery would help. My voice was calm, eerily calm. "Oh, okay. Tell her I said hi. I'll pick up takeout and come get you both around 7? Actually, we might stay the night. Mom's been lonely." A pause. "Is everything okay? You sound strange." "Just tired. Long day." "Okay. Kiss my girl for me." "Kiss my girl." The possessive tenderness in his voice made my stomach turn. She was his girl, his property, his investment, his father's spare part. The hearing was at 9 a.m. the following Monday. Diane had worked through the weekend. She'd obtained a court order for Nora's complete medical records from both Maple Grove Pediatric and the unmarked Kessler Brandt Clinic. She'd retained a pediatric hepatologist from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta to review the records. His preliminary assessment, filed as an expert declaration, was devastating. The minor child has been subjected to approximately 72 infusions of allogeneic hepatocyte preparations over 18 months. These infusions are not FDA approved for pediatric use. They carry known risks including immune sensitization, hepatic inflammation, and potential long-term fibrosis. The purpose of these infusions, based on the clinical documentation, is unambiguously to enhance the child's suitability as a living liver donor. This constitutes, in my professional opinion, a gross violation of medical ethics and a serious endangerment of the child's health. My husband's lawyers showed up in force. 3 of them, from a white shoe firm downtown that had the Whitfield family crest practically embossed on their letterhead. They argued that I was an emotionally unstable wife engaged in parental alienation, that the treatments were cutting-edge preventative medicine, that I had stolen confidential documents and violated my husband's privacy. Diane dismantled them with surgical precision. She played Patricia's recorded admission. She presented the expert's declaration. She showed the judge the email where my husband wrote, "She trusts me completely. By the time she finds out, it'll be done." She entered Dr. Kessler's credentials into evidence and revealed that his medical license had been suspended in 2 other states for experimental procedures on minors. She showed the financial trail, $1.2 million transferred from the Whitfield Family Trust to the Kessler Brandt Institute over 2 years. My husband sat through it all, with his jaw locked and his eyes fixed on the table. He didn't look at me once. When the judge asked him directly whether he had authorized experimental medical procedures on his daughter without her mother's consent, his lead attorney objected. The judge overruled. "I was trying to save my father's life," he said. His voice broke on the word father, and for one terrible moment, I saw the boy he must have been. The boy who worshipped Richard Whitfield. The boy who had been raised to believe that family loyalty was the highest virtue, and that sacrifice was the price of belonging. "My father is dying. He's a good man. He built everything we have." And Nora, the risk was minimal. She would have been fine. She would have saved him. I know I should have told Chloe. I know that. But she wouldn't have understood. She doesn't come from this kind of family. She doesn't understand what we owe. "What you owe," I said from across the room, "is your daughter a childhood that doesn't involve being cut open for spare parts." The judge, a silver-haired man named Judge David Kwan, who had clearly presided over a lot of ugly custody fights, removed his glasses and spoke with a measured fury that was more frightening than any shout. "Mr. Whitfield, in my 31 years on the bench, I have seen parents do extraordinary and sometimes terrible things in the name of love. But I have rarely seen anything as coldly premeditated as what is documented before me. You systematically deceived your wife. You enrolled your minor child in an unapproved experimental medical protocol for the sole purpose of harvesting her organ tissue. You conspired with a physician whose license has been revoked in multiple jurisdictions. And when confronted, your defense is that your wife wouldn't have understood because she doesn't come from your kind of family." He put his glasses back on. "Your kind of family, Mr. Whitfield, is exactly the kind this court exists to protect children from. Sole legal and physical custody was granted to me. All visitation suspended pending a full investigation. A referral was made to the Fulton County District Attorney and the FBI. My husband's passport and Nora's passport were surrendered. The Whitfield family trust assets related to the Kessler-Brandt payments were frozen. My husband was escorted from the courtroom by his attorneys. As he passed me, he stopped. His face was gray. The confidence, the easy charm, the polished certainty, all of it had been stripped away. "She's my daughter too," he said quietly. "Then, you should have treated her like one." 4 months later, Nora and I were living in Savannah, in a small yellow house 3 blocks from the water. My mother had moved in with us, converting the sunroom into her reading room, filling the house with the smell of her cooking and the sound of her opinions. The twins next door had befriended Nora on the first day, and now I couldn't pull her inside before dark. The legal aftermath played out in headlines I tried not to read. Dr. Victor Kessler was indicted on 12 counts of practicing experimental medicine on minors without proper authorization. The Kessler-Brandt Institute was shuttered. 2 other families came forward with similar stories. Children whose parents had been persuaded by wealth or desperation to enroll them in Kessler's conditioning program. My husband pleaded no contest to conspiracy and child endangerment. No prison time. The Whitfield lawyers earned their fee there. But 5 years of supervised probation, a permanent entry on the child abuse registry, and a felony record that ended his career in pharmaceutical sales and everything else. Richard Whitfield died in January, 3 months after the hearing. His liver failed while he was on the transplant list. Patricia Whitfield sent me a letter through her attorney, blaming me for his death. I didn't open it. My mother did, read it, and used it to line the bottom of the cat's litter box. The hardest part wasn't the fear or the fury. It was explaining to Nora why Daddy wasn't coming to tuck her in anymore. I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. Not at 5. So I told her that Daddy had made some mistakes and needed time to learn how to be better. That he loved her very much, but that sometimes love isn't enough to keep people safe. "Is Daddy sick?" she asked, her dark eyes enormous in her small face. "In a way, baby. But not the kind of sick where you go to the doctor." She thought about this, like when Tyler at school hits people because he's sad inside. "Yeah," I whispered, pulling her close. "Kind of like that." One evening in March, I was washing dishes when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Mrs. Whitfield?" "My name is Karen Langley. I'm a transplant coordinator at Emory. I'm calling because, well, this is unusual, but your ex-husband's father, Richard Whitfield, was on our deceased donor list. Before he passed, his case was part of a paired kidney-liver exchange program we were developing with the Mayo Clinic. The chain he was enrolled in has continued. His slot generated a match for a 14-year-old girl in Tennessee who has been waiting for a liver for 3 years. She received her transplant last Tuesday. She's recovering well." I gripped the edge of the counter. "I don't usually make these calls," Karen continued. "But I thought you might want to know that something good came out of all this. Not from what was done to your daughter. That was wrong. Everyone here knows that. But the infrastructure that was set up, the matching algorithms, the donor chain, it continued, it worked, and a girl is alive because of it." After I hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a long time, watching the last light fade over the marsh. The world was a complicated, brutal, occasionally miraculous place. A man had tried to carve up his daughter to save his father, and that same chain of events had, through some perverse alchemy of consequence, saved a stranger's child. It didn't redeem anything. It didn't make what he did less monstrous. But it reminded me that even in the ugliest stories, there are threads of grace that nobody planned. Nora ran in from the backyard, mud on her knees, and a fistful of dandelions. "These are for Grandma," she announced. "And this one," she held up the smallest, most battered dandelion of the bunch, "is for you, Mommy, because you look like you need a flower." I took the dandelion. Its stem was warm from her hand. "You know what?" I said, crouching down to her level. "I really did." She grinned, gap-toothed and incandescent, then tore back outside to rejoin the neighbor twins in whatever grand adventure they were constructing in the dirt. I watched her go. My daughter, whole, healthy, gloriously unaware of how close she had come to being someone else's miracle. I put the dandelion in a glass of water on the windowsill, right next to the kitchen light, where it could catch the last of the sun. It would wilt by morning. That was fine. She'd bring me another one tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day after that, for as long as I could keep her safe and free and wildly, beautifully, ordinary. And I would. That was the only promise that mattered now.